Listen, I'm a huge supporter of people exercising their First Amendment rights, except when people use them to literally exercise.
There are people out there, their preference is to go to a gym and work out with others. Here we see the push-ups. This is part of the demonstration that they have been doing here.
Wow, you guys are doing push-ups on the sidewalk. That would be unsanitary even without a pandemic. Enjoy having hands that are covered in corgi piss. In just the span of 2 months, our lives have changed dramatically, particularly in the way we think about eating. Since many of us are staying home, much of our entertainment and comfort now comes from food. Even our horny Instagram thirst traps have been replaced by somehow hornier loaves of bread. But there's a big disconnect from the privilege of posting bread pics and what's happening with our nation's food security.
At least 22 million Americans have filed for unemployment since the pandemic started. Now families across the country are just trying to figure out how to put dinner on the table.
Prior to the crisis, about 11% of Americans suffered from food insecurity, and we have every reason to believe that those statistics are increasing dramatically.
Since this pandemic began, the portion of American households that are food insecure has jumped to 23%, and young children are experiencing food insecurity to an extent unprecedented in modern times. Children shouldn't face food insecurity. The only time a child should ever feel insecure is when they go to Reed Applebaum's 12th birthday party and they accidentally clog the toilet so bad Mr. Applebaum has to come help. To combat food insecurity, the National School Lunch Program provides meals to 30 million children. Since schools have shut down, families have been hit especially hard.
The pandemic has her kids, now 4 and 16, home from school, where they got their morning and afternoon meals. She was using New York City's grab-and-go school meal program.
And then shortly between week 3 and 4, when I went to pick up a breakfast or a lunch or two, there weren't any more breakfast or lunch available.
Schools all over the country have stepped up to help feed families, but with rising food prices, it just isn't enough.
The assistance hasn't gone up, while prices have. At least they have in her food desert stretch of the Bronx.
When the pandemic first started, they were gouging prices. I mean, the cost of eggs was around $8.
$8 for eggs? Do those eggs contain baby velociraptors? With the country experiencing its worst level of unemployment since the Great Depression, more and more people are relying on food banks to feed themselves and their families.
The line of cars stretch for more than a mile. The wait for food at this emergency distribution site in Newark, New Jersey, more than an hour. Feeding America, the nation's largest group of food banks, says it is now seeing a staggering 100% increase in demand at some of its distribution sites.
The food bank here in San Antonio says during a regular time they service about 60,000 families. Well, since this COVID-19 shutdown began, that number has doubled to 120,000 families weekly.
People shouldn't have to wait in line for hours at food banks. This isn't 1987. We're not trying to score Motley Crue tickets in any way possible. I was one of the 3 girls that Girls, Girls, Girls was inspired by. Not only are food banks dealing with greater demand, they're also experiencing less supply. Restaurants, hotels, and casinos that would typically donate excess food are now closed, and grocery stores have less to donate because they're scrambling to keep their own shelves stocked. At this point, the only food businesses have left to donate is cans of cream of mystery soup. What's in it? That's a cream of mystery. With increased demand on their supply, many food banks are going millions of dollars over budget to purchase the food they need. Food banks fear that even with donations, they may not be able to cover the gap. That's why food banks desperately need money. They can use it to purchase fresh food instead of all the penis pasta bachelorettes keep giving them after parties. Given how much food banks are struggling right now, it's especially difficult to see farmers grappling with a surplus of food that, due to plummeting demand from restaurants, is going to waste. And while Trump has announced that the federal government will buy $3 billion worth of meat, dairy, and produce, it's unclear how that food will get to people who need it now. It's depressing, both for hungry people and for farmers who are seeing their debts rise as fast as their piles of potatoes.
A pile of potatoes is sitting there unsold, and as I said, pile. I'm looking at you. It's more like a mountain of potatoes.
That is honestly the biggest waste of potatoes since this.
Sharks, our company, is Potato Parcel. and we mail potatoes, and that's it. Any questions?
Many. I have many questions. To make matters worse, meat shortages are driving up prices for everyone.
Supplies are starting to run short after virus outbreak forced some meat processing plants to close.
As the owner here put it, the meat industry has become the new toilet paper industry.
If meat were the new toilet paper, that would be the apocalypse for Mr. Applebaum's toilet. That poor man. If you liked this video, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments below. And if you didn't like this video, I'm sure you've already left a comment. Thank you so much.